Hey everyone, and welcome. So, you're on your way to becoming an early childhood practitioner, which is an incredible, vital job. But all that amazing work you're going to do, it's all guided by a framework of laws and regulations that, let's be honest, can feel pretty overwhelming. Well, today, we're going to pull back the curtain on all that. We're going to build the skills you absolutely need to find, understand, and use the legal info that will back up your decisions every single day of your career.
Okay, picture this. You're at your center, maybe a few months into the job, and the director announces this big new policy. Everyone's got an opinion, there's chatter in the staff room, but you want to know what's really behind this. What's the actual law that made this change happen? Where do you even begin to look? Trust me, this scenario is going to happen. So, how do you cut through all that noise and get straight to the facts?
All right, so here's rule number one, and it's the most important one. You've got to skip your usual Google search. Seriously, a quick web search is just going to give you a ton of opinions, summaries, and old news. To find the actual law, you have to go where the law lives. That means starting with official, recognized, legit legal sources.
So, where are these magical places? Well, think of these as your go-to starting points. The Government Gazette is basically the official newspaper where all new laws are published. Then you have the big government websites like gov.ca and the Department of Basic Education site. They're hubs for this stuff. And there are incredible free resources like Softly, not to mention university databases. These are your gold mines for reliable info.
And here's a super simple trick you can use for anything you find online. Just ask two little questions. Who published this and when was it published? If you can't find clear answers to those two things right away, be suspicious. Real official documents are always going to tell you their origin and date. It's the fastest way to spot something fishy.
Okay, so you've done it. You found a document, it's from an official source. Awesome. But hold on. The next step is absolutely crucial. You have to figure out what you're actually looking at. Is this the law itself? Or is it just something explaining the law? That difference is everything because it tells you how much legal punch the document actually has. Let's break this down. On one side, you've got your authoritative sources. Think of these as the real deal. They are the law. They have legal force. We're talking about acts, regulations, court judgments. These are the documents that matter in a legal sense. On the other side, you have non-authoritative sources. Now, these are super helpful. Think textbooks, news articles, summaries from NGOs. They're fantastic for helping you understand the law, but they are not the law itself.
So here's a really simple rule of thumb to tell them apart. Ask yourself, does this document actually create a legal duty for me? Does it tell me I must do something? If the answer is yes, it's authoritative. If it just describes or explains those duties, it's not. That's the key. Are you holding the official rulebook or just a guide to the game? Now, let's get a little deeper. Even inside those authoritative sources, there are different layers. The two big ones you're going to see all the time are acts and regulations. Getting the difference between them is like understanding the difference between the main goal of a recipe and the step-by-step instructions. So, primary legislation, we're talking about acts. This is the big picture. An act is passed by Parliament and it lays out the main legal framework. The South African Schools Act is a perfect example of this. But then you have subordinate legislation, like regulations. These are the nitty-gritty details. They are created under the power of an act, and they tell you exactly how that act is going to work day to day. You want an easy way to remember this? Here it is. Acts tell you what the law is. They set the big principles. Regulations tell you how the law works in practice. They're the practical instructions. What and how. It's really that simple. Okay, everybody, lean in for this one because this is so important. Finding the law is great, but you have to make sure the version you're looking at is the current one. Using outdated law isn't a small mistake. It's a huge one. It could mean you're following the wrong safety rules or policies, and that can have really serious consequences. So how do you check? It's not as hard as it sounds. First, you're looking for two magic words, as amended. That's your clue that the original has been changed. Official websites will usually list all the changes and tell you the date of the very last update. What you're really hoping to find is something called a consolidated version. That just means it's the original act with all the updates already baked in. And let me just put a big warning sign on this. You might find an act from, say, 1996, and yes, it's probably still the law, but it's definitely not the same as it was in 1996. It's been changed or amended many times since then. Reading that original version without the updates would be like using a map from 30 years ago. You're gonna get lost. We are almost there, I promise. This is the last big piece of the puzzle, jurisdiction. In simple terms, you need to know where the law applies. Does it cover the whole country or just the province where your center is located? This is so important for knowing if a rule actually applies to you.
And luckily, this is pretty straightforward. National legislation is passed by Parliament and applies to everyone, everywhere in South Africa. The Children's Act is a great example. Then you have provincial legislation, which is passed by a provincial government and only applies in that one province. The name is usually a dead giveaway, right? Like the Gauteng Schools Education Act. You have to know which is which. So, we have covered a lot of ground. We've talked about finding sources, checking if they're the real deal, making sure they're up to date, and figuring out where they apply. Now, let's wrap all of that up into one simple, practical tool that you can use every single time a legal question pops up. And here it is, your 5-point legal checklist. From now on, before you ever rely on a legal document, just run it through these 5 questions. Is it official? Is it authoritative? Is it the law itself? Is it the most current version? Is it national or provincial? And is it an act or a regulation? Ticking these 5 boxes will keep you on the right path every time. You know, this really gets to the heart of everything we've talked about today. Being legally literate in your profession isn't just about being able to find a document that looks official. It's about having the critical thinking skills to know for sure if that document is reliable, if it's current, and if it actually applies to you, your classroom, and the children you're responsible for. So there you have it. You now have a real framework, a practical set of tools to handle the legal side of your job with confidence. This isn't just some abstract theory, it is a core professional skill that will make you a better, smarter, and more effective practitioner. So I guess the only question left is, now that you have the tools, what's the first legal question you're going to answer?